Hi, my name is Miriam Temeskin, and this is the Black TV Show podcast. This is where I talk about my favorite TV show episodes, currently talking about season 2 of The Cosby Show. Welcome back to the podcast. This is episode 42, The Cosby Show season 2, episode 19, Full House. This episode aired February 27th, 1986. And by the way, it's not the Full House like the TV show, with Danny Tanner and the whole family. This is just the name of the episode because literally we find out that this whole house is full. So we start, it's a late night, and Claire and Vanessa are sleeping in Claire and Cliff's bed, and Cliff comes home from work and he sees Vanessa's on his side of the bed. And Cliff tells Vanessa it's time to go to bed and she's not getting up, and then he's like, oh, I left you $5 under your pillow. She's still not really getting up, and Claire sees Cliff and wakes up and asks like what time it is, and he says 5:15 a.m., which is really late to get home. And I would be so dead especially if you come from work. Actually, I deal with that all the time when we do late night shoots. I remember back in 2019, there was like a constant, I feel like 2 weeks of doing night shoots, and I would be home at 7 a.m. It's not fun. It's because, and especially once you get home and becomes bright outside, it's so hard to sleep. So I understand how he's feeling. And so Claire says, oh, you must be tired. And Cliff was like, yeah, but I'm not tired enough to sleep on my own child. And Claire's like, oh, yeah, I let them sleep with me until you come home from the hospital. And so she tells Vanessa, Daddy's home. It's time to go to your own bed. So Vanessa gets up, and then all of a sudden we see Rudy appear. Like, we literally were like, where did she come from? So she was just hiding under the covers. And they're both, like, half asleep. Like, they're just like, what is going on? I just wanted to sleep, why am I being bothered, And so then Rudy asks, do we really have to go to our room? And he's like, yeah, you have to. And Vanessa asks, like, did he really leave $5 under her pillow? And he was like, no. And so Rudy is, like, half asleep when she's walking, and, like, literally Cliff is like, wake her up, we carry her, basically, like, carry her into their room. And so they leave. And so Cliff tells Claire, I'm going to do some serious sleeping. And Claire says, I don't blame you. You have had 4 nights of deliveries. And Cliff was like, tonight was the worst. Like, he would finish one delivery and then a car would pull up. And, there was one poor man that didn't even have his wife in it. And then there was one woman that walked in because her husband passed out. And while he's doing this, he's like yawning. He's like, oh, he's like very tired. And Claire says, it's Saturday today, or it's either today. She's basically saying Saturday is tomorrow, but it's already Saturday technically, it's 5:15 in the morning. And so, she says, you'll be able to sleep as long as you want. And Cliff says, he's going to sleep until his eyes pop out, and then wait 5 minutes, go to the sleep bank and make another withdrawal. And then he will get up and read his newspaper in a quiet room and read it in peace. And Claire says to Cliff, did you lock the door? And he's like, yeah, I locked the door. And like, she was like, are you sure you locked the door? And he's like, I'm sure. Like, I put literally the furniture against the door. And then she's like, did you turn off the lights? And he's like, yeah, I locked the lights, which that's not what she's trying to say, And so she asks, like, the only reason why she's asking is because there was that one time that he thought he locked the door, but he didn't. And he was like, yeah, that was 15 years ago. And Claire was like, and she's getting up to go, and because she wants to go double check the locked door. I swear, I feel like that's how my mother is. And also my dad, like, especially, when we moved into a bigger house with the garage, that the garage, especially, you just never know if it's open, and you don't want to leave it open at night. So they always double check. And so she gets up, and like, he's like, where are you going? And she was like, I just want to get a snack. And Cliff was like, okay, I'll go get it for you. And so then Claire was like, while you are there, can you double check that the doors are locked? So that was literally the purpose of her getting up. It wasn't like for a snack. And it's Saturday, and Cliff is sleeping, and he wakes up to a newspaper with a red ribbon on it, and it's on his neck, and he's like happy, and all of a sudden he like takes a deep breath, and all of a sudden he notices that his breath stinks. So of course he has to go to the washroom to brush his teeth. While this is happening, Theo and Cockroach are talking about their mustache and like, saying to each other like they don't have one, like you can't really see it. And the girls, like, they love mustache. Mustache, I don't know why I'm saying it wrong. But like I feel like that's not a thing nowadays. I feel like guys nowadays rather have the whole beard. It's like a thing, I feel like. Honestly, why don't you just be clean shaved? But people like certain things, so it's fine, do what you want to do. But just a straight mustache I don't think is a thing nowadays. Unless you're doing Movember, that's probably the only time. Cliff hears when he overhears this whole conversation. The only reason why one of the girls that they're going on a date with is with them is because the other girl likes like the other guy or something. Like they were just going back and forth basically. And Cliff is hearing this whole conversation, and then all of a sudden they come out of the washroom, and while this is happening, they were in the washroom. Sorry. They were in the washroom, and then they come out, and Cliff tells them that they both look manly today, and they're equally manly, and they're both like happy about it. And then Cliff goes and leaves, and Cockroach says, the only reason why he said that is because he's your father. And so then Cliff goes to the kitchen, and Vanessa and Robert are there. They're listening to music. And so Cliff turns off the radio that's closest to him, and all of a sudden the music's still going, and he's like, "Where's the music coming from?" It's a bit quieter, but there's still music coming. And all of a sudden there's another stereo beside Robert, and so finally Cliff turns off the radio. And Cliff was like, "Why do you have two radios?" And Robert was like, "To make a richer sound. It's like as if we're there listening, like playing the music, like literally we're right there." And Cliff was like, "I don't really need to be there," And so Cliff asks Vanessa where Claire went, and she said that she went to the office. And Robert asked Vanessa, like, "Does he always sleep this late?" And Vanessa was like, "He's been working a lot of nights lately." And Robert was like, "I don't think so. I think that it might be that he has a low energy cycle." And so he tells Cliff, you might need to get your biorhythms checked. First of all, I didn't know what biorhythms are. I've never really heard that before. So I looked that up. Biorhythm is a recurring cycle in the physiology or functioning of an organism, such as daily cycle, sleeping, and walking. That's basically what biorhythm is, okay? Some fun facts for you. So Vanessa and Robert went to go check at a department store that they were at, and the guy told them, asked them for their signs, the time of birth, and favorite colors. And also $2 a piece, of course, because, they're trying to make money off of you. And Robert promised to pay Vanessa back. And so Cliff was like, "Oh, so you are on a low cash cycle. Booyah." and so then Vanessa said that, this guy took all this information in 2 seconds, basically. They gave us a chart that proves that they are perfect for each other, Robert and Vanessa. And so Vanessa says that, right now they're peaking on ambitions and romance, and they both value jealousy and power. I don't really know what that means. I'm not going to go check my biorhythm for $2 a piece. I could use that $2 for other things, okay? And so then Robert tells Cliff that him and Claire should check their biorhythm, and he can help them read their charts. And Cliff says, "I see that you're peaking on generosity." And Cliff decides to leave the kitchen to go to the living room, and there's Denise with Eddie. So we meet Eddie, and I think he's technically considered Denise's boyfriend at this time. And they're watching MTV. Back when MTV was all about music videos. That's literally what MTV was, back in the 80s. I was literally watching a documentary from CNN. They had the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, and this was produced by Tom Hanks. And in the 80s, it was the decade of the video, the decade of music videos. And so how MTV changed the revolution of music, the music industry in terms, because now they made visuals to music. So, nowadays MTV is filled with, Jersey Shore, Teen Mom, 16 and Pregnant, other reality shows. So it's kind of sad because the whole purpose of MTV was all about music. Of course, when I grew up, I feel like at that time they started already doing reality shows on MTV. So in Canada, what we had was Much Music. And so Much Music, that's where I discovered so many music videos. I still remember the first music video that I really discovered was by Usher, which was Yeah. And to see a whole bunch of Destiny Child music videos. And then I feel like now Much Music, when I turn it on TV here in Canada, it's just a bunch of TV shows. It's no music, and literally the channel is called Much Music, which is supposed to be about music. I know maybe because of YouTube, they just kind of lost their business, but it's I kind of wish there could be a couple hours of just straight music videos. That's just my opinion. I miss the good old days. That was literally the good old days where literally I just watched a whole bunch of music videos on Much Music. And I guess for the people in the 80s and the 90s where they watched music videos on MTV. And so Eddie is listening to, he's really jamming into the song, he's patting his leg to the beat of the song. And then he starts moving his head back and forth with the beat of the song. And by the way, Cliff sits down and sits beside him. And he's kind of distracted by Eddie's patting on his leg. And so Cliff decides to get up and goes sit in the back corner. And all of a sudden, Eddie starts singing out loud. And Cliff is just I can't even read my paper. And all of a sudden, Denise joins in with singing. Listen up.
My bare feet was burned, and I almost lost my nerve.
I see you're watching the all music station. You're into reggae, huh?
Yeah.
I said, hey, man. I said, you go down. And I said, hey, man.
But I think for a while to stay to myself.
Hey, man. I said, hey, man. I said we go down. I say, you say, we say. I say, hey, man.
So now Cliff goes into the dining room and he finds Sondra and Elvin there studying, and he didn't even realize Elvin was there today. And so Sondra, you can tell, is upset, and Cliff says he's just going to read his paper in the corner. And, Elvin asked for, a highlighter, and so Sondra gave it to him, and with anger, though. And, Cliff notices it, and Sondra, tells Cliff, I try to teach him a lesson today. Usually he's late, and then that usually makes me angry. So I decided to intentionally pick him up 2 hours late, and he didn't get mad. And Elvin was like, well, all I cared was that you're okay. And of course she was okay. And what's crazy is, back in the day there was no cell phones, but nowadays, whenever I go hang out with a friend and then, it's time for me to leave, they always make sure to tell me that I got to text them that I got home safe, that I'm okay. And that just reminded me on that. I was just like, oh, he really cares about her. Like the fact that he's like, I just want her to be okay. Like, why would I be angry that you're late? Because that is true. Like, you could be late because you were in a car accident, and that's a scary situation. So the fact that she came and she's all okay, I like his attitude, because I would not be that attitude. I would be angry. I would be like, why were you late? Why? Okay, why were you late? So that's just my energy, And so we find out that Elvin never gets angry. He's never been angry in his life, which is crazy to think. But it's a good life to live, to not be angry, like to have such a positive attitude. We need more people like that. So I don't know why Sondra is trying to be upset that he's never been angry. Like, why would he be upset about that? Okay. But then Sondra tells Elvin that he's a passive aggressive. I've heard that so many times. So I was like, I gotta look this up because I don't know if I know the exact definition. So passive aggressive is acting indirectly aggressive. People regularly exhibit resistance to request or demand from family and other individuals, often by procrastinating expression, and acting stubborn. Examples are avoiding direct or clear communication, invading problems, fear of intimacy or competition, making excuses, blaming others, playing victim, and hiding anger. Well, Elvin is hiding anger, I guess, in a way, because he's never been angry. So I guess he is a passive aggressive. When I was reading this, I was like, this is so me. I do blame others sometimes for bad if situations happen to me. I do make excuses. I try to avoid communications on something very deep. So I guess I am a passive aggressive. That's not good, though. That's not really good. And so then while this is happening, Cliff is just trying to read his paper. And so Cliff suggests that, he should get his biorhythms check, because he's literally listening to Vanessa with this whole biorhythms. And Sandra was like, what? Biorhythms? What is that? And so Cliff is like, eventually you're going to work this out. And so Sondra says, we have to work on it now. And so Cliff was like, you got to do it now? And she was like, yeah. So Cliff decides to leave and go to his bedroom, where he finds Rudy and her friend are watching TV. They're watching cartoons. And so, Cliff was like, what are you doing in my room? You need to have permission to be up here. And so Rudy was like, well, Mommy said that we could be up here if we were very quiet when you were sleeping. And so when he waked up, they went to go watch TV. And Rudy's friend was like, he slept a very long time. This is now the second non-family member that has said this. Like, guys, let people sleep. Okay, kids? I understand. I feel like as a kid, I hated going to bed early and stuff like that. So I feel like, because when you're a kid, you have all this energy, but you gotta let these adults sleep, okay? They work hard, okay? And so Rudy, asks Cliff, if he wants to watch cartoons, and he's like, no, it's okay. And so he gets up, and Rudy's like, where are you going? And he's like, I don't know. I felt so bad. And so then we end Act 1, and we go into Act 2, and we see Cliff is going into his office, because this is the only place in the house that is quiet. He locks his office because he's afraid of people coming in. And so then he plays his own music, and while he plays the music, he pretends to be like Eddie, how he turns his head back and forth. And then he starts reading his paper, and all of a sudden he hears a knock, and it's Claire. And he's like, how do I know this? That's my wife. And he said, what if that's my kids impersonating my wife? And so he asked the question, where did we eat the night that she graduated law school? And she says a name, and Cliff was like, no, wrong, we went to a different place. And Claire was like, how dare you? How did you forget that? And so Cliff was like, don't put me in a headlock. All right, okay. And so Claire comes in, and she has a big pizza and a picnic basket. And we find out that Claire sneaked around the house and brought the pizza to him. And no one saw her. And Cliff was like, you're a genius. And, I am a genius for marrying you. And so Claire was like, should we tell the kids about what we've done? And Cliff was like, are you drunk? That's so funny. I was just like, that killed me. I don't know why. And so then all of a sudden we hear a knock on the door. Cliff, his quiet time's already ruined already all of a sudden. And it's Elvin. And Cliff was like, I'm in here with a patient. We're about to deliver. Excuse me, you don't deliver babies in your office. You deliver them at the hospital. So we clearly know that you're lying. So Elvin would know you're lying. And so finally Claire ends up opening the door. And so we find out that, Eddie is supposed to give Elvin a ride, but Claire's car is blocking Eddie's car. And Sondra went to go grab the spare keys to move the car, but the car won't start up. And Cliff says, why don't you move it, like push it into a parking space? And he would get his mechanic to look at it tomorrow, which tomorrow is Sunday. And so so Claire was like, no, we need to figure that out now. We need it fixed now because, tomorrow's Sunday. Like, what mechanic works on a Sunday? And so Claire leaves, and Elvin sees the pizza with the black olives, anchovies, and sausage, and Elvin is about to grab onto it, and Cliff was like, Elvin, no, you're not having that. And so it's the evening time, and we see all three men dressed up in the living room. We find out that Claire's car is all fixed now, and Robert, so we find out where everyone's going out tonight on a Saturday night. We see so Robert says, him and Vanessa are going to a school dance. It's not formal dance, but they like to look good. So it's Saturday night. I never had a school dance on a Saturday night. I had a school dance on like a Thursday night, which was always weird to me. I don't know if that was, I have no idea why that was the reason. But I don't know if that was a thing in the 80s where, you go to school dances on the weekend. I also, this is America, so it's a bit different. But I remember my school dances, they were never, like, they're 12. So that was when I was in grade 7. And I remember they were always on the weekdays, and which I hated it because it was like, you had to be, the dance had to be done by 9. And it was just like, that's the shortest party ever, So it was weird to like hear that they're like going to a school dance and like they're going on their own. It's not like they're getting a ride there, which is so weird because I remember we would have to get rides with someone. So it's just all weird to me. I don't know why. And so then Elvin says that, him and Sondra and Rudy are going to see the Alvin Ailey Dance Company. Of course, that's the thing to do when you're in New York. I wouldn't know. I've never actually seen the Alvin Ailey Dance Company. I've only been to New York for like 3 days, so there was so much to see in such a short time. So that was one thing the one thing I wanted to do in New York was see Broadway, and I didn't get to do that. So hopefully the next time I go to New York, I'll be able to see Broadway. And then Claire asked Eddie where they're going, and Eddie was like, yeah, we're going out. But he doesn't say where he's going. He's like a very quiet guy. He's just like to himself, basically. And so then Claire says, like, I'm going to go check on the girls to see if they're ready. And so Cliff looks at the guys and says, when I had my daughters, I know they're going to date boys and stuff, but I didn't know that they're going to date handsome men. And Robert says something I did not understand what he meant. Robert just says things and all this stuff. If I ever have Dondre Whitfield on the show, I'm literally just going to go through all the clips that he was part of and just ask, like, do you follow this philosophy, like, of what you said while you were a child? Because it's like half the time I'm like, I have to like rewatch it and be like, what did you say? And I'm trying to figure out the meaning of what you're saying. So I don't know what the deal is. And so then Theo and Walter like try to sneak out the house, and Cliff was like, oh no, I need a hand, like I need you to give me a 5. And so they both give him a 5, and Cliff was like, no, okay, give me a 10 so that both their hands could go down, and they won't go down. Finally he tells them, put your jackets down, because the jackets were covering their mouth. and we see that they got penciled in mustache. Why am I saying mustache? Mustache. And Cliff was like, I remember the times when I did that where I use a woman's mascara, which is weird. I was like thinking to myself, a mascara. I don't know what a mascara looked like back in the 80s, but now I don't know if I would use that. Like there's like pens that you can use, like eyeliner. I feel like eyeliner would be a better use for like to kind of pencil in kind of thing. And so the doorbell rings, and it's the girls that Theo and Cockroach are gonna go out with. And so like Theo was like, please be quiet, like don't say anything. And so they open the door, and Cliff is like, oh no, bring the ladies in, we gotta meet them. And so we meet Tracy and Linda, and Cliff tries to tell a story, but Theo's like, we gotta go. And so Cliff says, I hope it doesn't rain on your face. And like they both look at him mad. And so they leave, and Sondra, Vanessa, and Rudy come down, except for Denise, and Cliff was like, oh, I want to take a photo of you guys before you go. And Sondra was like, it gotta be quick because we gotta go. And so everyone asked each other like how they look, and they're like, good. How do I look? Good. How do I look? Good. How do you look? Good. How do I look? Good! Like it's literally, they start like yelling. And all of a sudden Denise comes down and she asks them, how do I look? Good! Like it was so, like the energy right there, And so then they take a group photos, and Cliff tells everyone to get out, and they all leave. And all of a sudden Cliff is like happy, like they're all out now, and I can finally read my paper. But he literally says, by now, at this time, this isn't news anymore. And literally when I heard that, I was just like, nowadays that is so true, because now like we have Twitter, and just Google in general, and YouTube, and like the news that you learn, like I listen to, I've said it so many times, I listen to the Breakfast Club. It's a New York station. They make it in a podcast form, so I'm able to listen to it on Apple Podcasts. And like they record the radio station at 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. New York time. And sometimes I don't listen to it until like later in the evening. And then I find out they say something like a ledge happened or this person got in trouble. And then by the evening that day, someone got arrested or something like that. And I'm like, me listening to this is old news. I'm so behind time. And like you'd see things like on Twitter and all that stuff. So I so relate to what he said that, by the time he reads that paper, it's so old news. It's not news anymore. And like I think to myself, like, is this still a thing nowadays? Like, I understand magazines, because magazines are like going in depth of a person's life. You interview someone and that you take photos of that person, and then of course putting ads in there. But a newspaper, it's like news is like about like what's happening. And like when you print the newspaper early in the morning and then someone reads it by the evening, and like so many things have happened since that morning. So it's like, I don't know if a newspaper is a thing nowadays, because we are in a time where we need to know things now. And so I don't know who still reads newspaper. Let me know if you still read an actual newspaper, not like a newspaper that's online where they have articles, like an actual newspaper that was printed. Let me know at Twitter, Black TV Shows Pod. I would love to hear that, because I definitely don't. And so Claire was like, do you mind if I watch TV? And he's like, yeah, for sure. And so it's they're watching something about crickets mating. And so it talks about like how the male cricket and the female cricket mate together. And while this is happening, Cliff and Claire are cuddling together. And then Cliff starts moving his legs, because it says that, the male cricket makes noise with their legs, like that cricket sound they always hear at nighttime. And then eventually the guy says, the female flips the male down and eats him alive. And Claire is just so into it. Cliff is like, turn it off. And then the guy says, and then the cricket dance on top of it. And Claire is so happy to hear this all. And we end the episode right there. So I don't know if Cliff really got his day of peace, basically. Like, it was just kind of ruined all day by the whole entire family. It was literally a full house because every room that he went to, there was always someone there. So I don't know if he really got his day of rest. And as I said, but now it's too late to read that paper because it's old news. And so there's some fun facts to learn about this episode, that the song that Vanessa and Robert were listening to in the kitchen when Cliff came in is Cosmic Slop. That's the title track from the Funkadelics 1973 album. And then the song that Denise and her boyfriend Eddie are listening to is Sponjo Reggae. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Which is by the 24/7 Spies. The song was first recorded on their 1989 debut album, Harder Than You, 3 years after this episode aired. I also, when I was Googling, there was another band that also, prior to this band recording it, there was another band that literally sounds exactly the same. So I don't know why it's not this band, but there's a band called Black Euro. I don't know how to say the last part. That comes from the album Red, and that came out in 1981. So I'm not sure, like, because this is the information I got from the IMBD. Maybe it was by them, the 24/7 Spies, but there was also another band that had this song in 1981, way before, of course, this episode. So, facts for you right there. We had guest stars, Jeffrey Owens, of course, Carl Anthony Payne as Cockroach, Dondre Whitfield as Robert, Clay Prince, he played Eddie. He did a few credits. He had like 24 credits, but most of them I didn't really know. We had Naoko. I don't want to butcher her last name. And she played as Nyoko, but her name was going to get changed. She's going to become we'll see her in 6 other episodes, and her name ends up changing to Kim. I don't know if it's because it's easier to say. And I guess there's a lot of Kims that are Asian. I'm not sure what ethnicity is she. To be exact, just based on her name, I'm not sure where in Asia she's from. But yeah, it's weird that it like literally changed to Kim. And then we had Tracy, who played Tracy, and we had Monique playing Linda, and this is both their only credits. Yet again, proving my point, they literally picked people out of the streets of New York to come on the show to do 2 lines, and then they went back to their regular normal lives, which is great. Like, I love that. You know, I'm hoping that, you know, my city will be like where people that have regular jobs, one day they get asked to be on a show, and it's a hit show, and then they can always look back at it, you know. Tracy and Monique, wherever they are, if they're still alive, they get to always look back at this episode and see themselves being part of history. The lesson for this episode is, if you want to read a newspaper in peace and quiet, go to a library. I think that's the lesson, really. That's what we learned. Although, as I said, nowadays reading newspaper, like physical copies of it, is not a thing. But you know, if you still do that, just go to the library. If your house is full house, you know, don't even try. So my question is, at this time in your life, which Huxtable kid would you relate the most with the relationship you have with your friend or partner? Would that be Sondra and Elvin, Denise and Eddie, Theo and Cockroach, Vanessa and Robert, or Rudy and Nyoko? I think for me, I'm a Rudy and Nyoko in my life currently, with my I guess I have a few besties. That's the kind of relationship I'm in right now. So let me know at Twitter and Instagram at Black TV Shows Pod using the hashtag Full House. The next episode is episode 43, The Cosby Show Season 2, episode 20, Close to Home.